Welcome to the Love Mondays podcast. My goal is to bring inspiring and authentic guests to the show who can have a profound impact on my viewers and listeners. They can help everybody love Mondays and be truly excited and intentional about living that life every single day. In this world where many people do not love what they do and endure their jobs and professions, I think there's a unique and fulfilling path for everyone. I'm super excited to bring Stephen Caldwell on the podcast. He's a former football player who played in arguably the best league in the world, the Premiership. He was scouted by the likes of Chelsea, Man U, and Newcastle, and eventually played for Newcastle, which was at the top of the Premiership at the time. He also played for Sunderland, Birmingham, and then joined TFC, Toronto FC, as the captain in my home city. And he also played international soccer for Scotland, which is another phenomenal achievement, which I'm sure he's super proud of. After retiring from soccer, Stephen successfully transitioned to broadcasting and is a leading analyst at TSN, where he was recently an analyst at the Qatar World Cup. Congrats on that. If that's not enough, he's also was an assistant coach for the Canadian soccer team and is currently the president of the Oakville Blue Devils and the CEO of Best Athletes. Wow, that's a mouthful. Stephen, thanks for being on my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ron. I appreciate the introduction.
Yeah, no, and I'm super excited to bring two of my passions together, leadership and football together. Nothing better than that. Okay, let's start. I want to help everybody love Mondays. It actually just happens to be a Monday when we're recording. So you seem to be living a very intentional life, authentic, loving what you do. What advice would you give to people who maybe aren't loving their Mondays as much?
It's something that I think about quite often, actually, Mondays, because I've been so fortunate in my adult life to never really recognise a Monday, let's just say that, because of the type of things that I do. Mondays are just another day. When I was a professional athlete, Monday was either match day -1 or match day -4. It was always with a kind of match in mind, whether that come at the weekend or during the midweek. So I often used to wake up on Mondays and think, how lucky am I that I don't have that the Monday blues, as they call it, where you have to go to work for an entire week. And I'm glad to say, since retiring as a professional athlete, I still have that feeling, because I'm so fortunate that I get to do things that I love. I get to do things that still centre around the game of football, and I still feel like a Monday is just another day, and it just fits into kind of 7-day week where I'm constantly either working on something soccer, football related, or I am preparing for something that's around the game of football. And my advice would be to try and get into things that you love. I think that's probably the message here. If you love something, then you can make a career of it, then go for it and be fully committed to that. I'm often asked how I prepare for different parts of my life. At times I am overwhelmed by some of the things that you mentioned there, Ron, in my introduction. I am overwhelmed and I have a lot on my plate, but I love it. And that's the message that I give to people, that if you don't love what you do, or if I didn't love what I did, I don't think I could be good at it. I just feel that I need to live it and love it kind of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when it comes to that aspect, again, a Monday, it's just another day of being part of the beautiful game.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Do what you love. And I love how you say be fully committed to it, right? And if you love it, I mean, it doesn't feel like work. So absolutely love it. Okay, so let's bridge right into footy, right? So tell me about your early days, like in Scotland. Like what resonates from you out in Scotland playing football as a young lad?
Back in Scotland, football is the number one sport. It's basically part of most people's lives in some way or another, whether they're fans or they're connected to the game. So growing up in Stirling, Scotland, in central Scotland, Stirling's a small city, you could call it, but we used to call it a town because it was 50,000 people. So it was a great upbringing. I have a younger brother who also became a professional soccer player, so I'm really fortunate that Gary and I were partners, and he's 19 months younger than me, Gary, so we always could push each other when it came to practicing and being dedicated to the sport. But it was certainly a football background. It was an area that was dedicated to football. You get some rugby and some other sports, of course, but I mean, predominantly everyone is out in the local field and playing football as much as possible, getting home quick for school and trying to practice. And in the early days, of course, it was more of a fun thing. And then as we started to get into our, let's call it, just pre-teenage years, teenage years, it then became a little bit more serious every single year and started to really believe that there was a chance to be successful. My parents were completely dedicated. We have everything to owe to them. My mum and dad sacrificed so much to get us to soccer and to make sure that we were prepared right to perform. And then, like I said, we were focused on our studies as well. My mum made sure that we were prepared in case there was an injury or it didn't pan out the way that we hoped. But I think deep down in both our heads, certainly in my head, football was kind of like the only option and definitely the way that I wanted to go.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. So my son Samuel plays hockey, AA for Mississauga North Stars, and it's tremendous dedication as well. But I'm really fascinated to say how much of the dedication comes from the parent or the coach and how much comes from the athlete. So how much dedication was self-motivated and how much came from the parents or coach? And what advice would you give to, I'd say the big question, to kids and to parents when they have competitive athletes, because it's a tricky balance to manage as a parent or a coach?
Yeah, it is, and it's a great question, and it's a question that I often think about, probably more now as a parent and having two teenage sons who are very committed to soccer, to football. It's interesting to think back, and what I can tell you is that there was never a time where I didn't want to go to a soccer training or a game. Was I kind of pushed and was I motivated in the right way by my parents? Absolutely. I'm sure there was moments where if they didn't have the drive and the determination to get us there and to instill in us a belief and a determination to be better and to do more, we wouldn't have done it. So I think that has to come from your upbringing. But what I'll say is, when it came to my mum and dad, it was not, they didn't just have this attitude about soccer or about football. They had it about everything in life. Something I always remember my dad saying is, if you're going to do a job, you better do it right. You should do it right. And that was that hard work ethic, that kind of committing to things was always instilled in us. Education, sport, life, whatever it is, was there. So football being so important in our lives, it was front of mind, or first and foremost, let's say. And there was a few times, I was quite a shy lad, so there was a few times where I sort of wasn't so outgoing. I maybe didn't want to be pushed in that direction, and I'm thankful I had parents who kind of gave me that extra bit of support and that extra bit of push. Tough love, as we say in Scotland. It was not like we kind of parent these days where it's very loving and arm around the shoulder. It was a bit more tough love, but I'm glad I had it. And we certainly felt loved at all times. We never felt forced into doing anything, but we were given a kick up the backside when we needed it, and it stood us in good stead as we forged forward in our professional careers.
I love how you said it's like, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's kind of your parents, it's the holistic approach. Hey, your studies, everything you do, it's about that 100% all-in commitment. So how much of your rise to Premiership is natural talent versus hard work?
I'm going to say 20% natural talent, 80% hard work. That's just off the top of my head. It's natural talent gets you so far, and then it all comes down to mindset and hard work. You arrive at a place. So I arrived at Newcastle upon time, which was my first professional club, and I'm sort of 16, and I'm probably the big fish in the little pond coming from still in Scotland, and then I see there's like 40 plus other players who are just as good as me, just as strong as me, just as kind of talented as me, and I got to find a way of getting ahead of most, if not all, of the guys to actually make it to a first team. And then you got to compete with men who have hundreds of games experience to actually say that you're worthy of place in that team ahead of someone else. So there are these constant battles where you're trying to win out, and the only way you can win them is through determination, grit, whatever you want to call it, attitude to be better, to be the best. So I think the talent gets you there, of course, and ultimately when decisions are made, it comes down to you know, are you good enough? Can you keep up? Can you cope with the level that you're playing at? But it's finding answers and sort of clawing your way along that I think is the deciding factor about, you know, why the 0.01%, whatever the numbers are, make it from talented youth athletes to professional athletes. It's thinking back, ups and downs, trying to navigate through them and staying focused, staying committed and staying positive are some of the hardest things that you go through as a young athlete.
I love your answer there. 80% is hard work, grit, determination. And I remember you telling me there was a time where you were kind of nailed to the bench for a while. You weren't getting the playing time, but you somehow got out of that. Tell me about the mindset you just talked about to be able to endure that.
It's tough. It is really tough, and you need a support system round about you. You know, I mentioned my parents earlier. I always had my parents, had my family. You know, you have your support system. You have people who you share these moments with, who you trust and you respect their opinion. And it's that balance between the arm around the shoulder and the, you know, get on with this, you're feeling sorry for yourself. It's extremely difficult mental journey trying to be a professional athlete, because you're always striving and you're always pushing yourself to be better, and it never ends. And the good times are few and far between, and they're fleeting, and the bad times seem like they last. And it's crazy because it's the highs of the good times that you're chasing. You know, for the you know, I was lucky enough to have an 18-year career, so for 18 years, you're just chasing the few real legitimate highs that last for a short period of time, because the minute you sort of come back to reality, you think, well, I got to go again and I got to be better the next year. And, you know, you always want to play at a higher level. You want to achieve more. So I think it was difficult for me to understand that kind of striving aspect, to keep pushing myself, to try and enjoy the journey, which is something that I remind myself all the time these days with perspective and being 42 years old. I try and enjoy the journey, because I don't think I enjoyed the journey enough in the early part of my career. It was probably to my late 20s when I really understood who I was and what my strengths and weaknesses were, and I could enjoy it more, and I could really focus on the unique things that I bring to a team that are special. That was in my late 20s, so I probably went through like a decade, tough mental times and tough on myself, probably not enjoying it as much as I should have, but it's I'm thankful that I kind of figured that out, because I think some players go through their whole career without figuring that out, and they never really enjoy it. But I'm glad that I kind of figured that out in my kind of, maybe I was 26, 27. I usually kind of think about it as when I joined Burnley in my career, and then I started to realise like who I was as a player and enjoy it. And I'm glad to say that I had, you know, 7-8 years of really relishing every moment of being a professional football player.
That's such an important lesson in life, is to enjoy the journey, right? And not just the highs, as you said, which, you know, sometimes don't come that often. And I think everybody can learn from that, to say, how do I enjoy practice? How do I enjoy training, right? And I always think about, you know, a Kobe Bryant type approach, where it's just commitment to upping his game every day. I don't know if he quite enjoyed it. He put in the work. Yeah. But that commitment is astounding, right? So you talked about your parents. I think that was probably the perfect support you needed. Tell me about a coach who was really impactful in your life, who helped you get there.
Many coaches helped me get there. I have to say that to start with. And I honestly think every coach helps form you as a person or as a player, good and bad. You know, like you think back to some of the coaches that you maybe didn't get on so well with, or didn't play, or were personality clashes. You still got to learn, and you still got to take things from them that help you in your journey. But my mentor, the guy who believed in me most, was a Scottish coach at Newcastle called Tommy Craig. Tommy was a Scottish international, tremendous coach. I actually played with Newcastle amongst some other teams, Aberdeen, Sheffield Wednesday. But he was my reserve coach when I got to Newcastle, and he was at such an important time in my career where he believed in me. I'd say more than anybody. He saw things in me that he felt could be exceptional, and I think I needed that at the time because I was kind of struggling to make that final breakthrough to the first team. And I was probably wavering a little bit thinking back. Like I was probably on the edge, essentially failing, I guess, at Newcastle. And this guy was just unwavering in his support and reminding me what I was good at and what my strengths were and that I could get there. And I really needed that at the time. There was a period, there was actually a point where I got released at Newcastle, and they decided that they were going to let me go. And it was devastating. I think I heard on like the Friday afternoon, and I had a game the next day with the youth team. So it was tough to get going for that. You know, I was thinking, what's my future? Where am I going to go? Am I going to bounce down the leagues? And I played the game, did okay. And then Tommy came to me a few times in that period, and I had a big reserve game on the Monday night at Aston Villa, at Villa Park. And he said, look, there'll be people there. You're going to be fine. You're going to find your place. You got to just keep believing. I went out there, had a really strong game. And when the Tuesday came, there was a few clubs that put in some offers for me to join them, lower than Newcastle at the time. And thankfully, Newcastle decided that they weren't going to let me go. They almost changed their mind in 5 days. And I ended up then going through and playing for the first team and having some minutes. So I think back a lot to that 5 days and particularly Tommy's support through that and how important a coach can be in the development of a young athlete's life. And, you know, I consider that from 10 years old to sort of 21 years old. You know, it's so important that they have that support. They have people who will help guide them at the important times. And Tommy was my guy at that time, and I'll never ever forget that. And he's someone who taught me lessons, you know, 25 years ago that I still use today. And I still try and pass on, I guess, to my kids and to any kids that I coach or that I come across in the football world.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's so powerful. And it just shows how much of a privilege it is to be a parent or a coach and the impact, positive or negative, you can have on an individual. And if Tommy Craig wasn't there for that 5-day period, I wonder if you would have had the type of career you would have, right? And that's what's so special, to have those mentors. And I can see the emotion when you talk about them. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, so I do want to get to Canada for a second. So you were a coach for Canada for a while, and you know, clearly they didn't have the result they wanted in Qatar, but I see it as a big stepping stone. Tell me about the future of Canada from your eyes.
I think it's very bright. I think there's a lot of talent in Canada, in the country. I do believe that some things need to change in our structure for it to be truly realised. And I think we're probably in the middle of seeing some of these changes come out. I really sincerely hope so. And I think a lot of people have done some great things to grow the game in Canada, but I still think we've got a bit to go to be our best. But it was a tremendous privilege to coach the guys, to see their growth, to see their development, to see their belief change as a group and individually. You know, the stars are obvious, Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, but it's some of the other guys, Kyle Larin, see his development, Stefan Eustáquio, Sam Adekubi. It's not just the kind of international guys that have developed. Some of the development in our MLS guys, I think, is significant. Kamal Miller being a player that I work with very closely and saw him grow as a player and saw him grow as a person, which was a real privilege for me. I was focused on the defensive unit, so I have very strong relationships with the defenders, Kamal Miller, Alistair Johnson, Stephen Vittoria, Daniil Henry, who I knew as a teammate at Toronto FC. So tremendous experience. I think we've got a long way to go. I don't mean a long way to go. I mean the potential to develop is huge. Like, I think we've got a big space to actually get even better, and I do think that we will. But taken away from just that kind of Canadian men's national team, I think overall the structure and the shape of Canada soccer has to change a little bit. The development system, I think, is a bit too elitist and a bit difficult for everyone to have a place within the game. And when you look at some of our success stories, they were pretty fortunate to make it into that system in a lot of ways. And we've got to make sure that we find a way for everyone to have a place to play, a place to develop, a place to grow, so we can maximise our potential and make sure that talent makes it to the highest levels. More pathways. CPL, Canadian Premier League, is a great example. On the women's side, we're going to have hopefully a domestic women's league in the next couple of years. More pathways and more opportunities for these young men and young women to develop at their pace, at their stage, at their maturation comes at different times, and to make sure that we grab them at the different places to get to their highest level.
So what can the average Canadian coach do differently, or what are some of those things that need to help us get to the next level? Where I love what you're saying, offering the same opportunity to everybody.
Yeah, coaching wise, I think we've got a lot of space to develop. Like we need more qualified coaches. We need more, I think, skill-based coaches. So I think some of the things we're coaching at younger levels is a bit too sort of teenage, latter year, pro-based tools, let's call it. I think we need more technical-based training at the younger age groups. I see too many fields where the coach is telling the under 10s to, be in the right shape or whatever it may be in play, and teaching them the receiving skills and spatial awareness and ball mastery and all these things. So I'd like to see more emphasis put on that. I'd like to see more competition, I have to say. I know Canada Soccer believe that no scores and no standings is the way forward up until a specific age. It must be like 13 or 14, and I don't believe in that. I'm just back from a trip to Uruguay, and I watched 8-year-old kids compete to win. But I think the fundamental thing here is that we need to remember is to teach a kid how to win and lose is absolutely vital. I don't think we should take out of them that they want to win, but I think if and when they lose, which will happen to everybody, it happens to Messi, it happens to Ronaldo, so it happens to all of us, it's how you conduct yourself and how you react to that, and how you sort of reflect on your individual performance, your team's performance is vital to development. We've got to find a way of bringing that in. I think at times we are a great country, Canada. We have a lot of immigrants. We'll have to find someone that's truly unique to Canada, to try and take little bits from everywhere and to make someone that's truly Canadian. I don't think we've really established that in the sport of soccer yet, but I hope we get there. But I think we're on the right path, and I've been here 10 plus years, and I've saw so much development in the game that I'm really proud to have played a part as a player and been involved in many aspects of the business of soccer and the technical side of soccer, that I'm proud of the journey. I just think we've got a long way to go and a lot of development to come to realise our full potential.
Yeah, no, I really like that answer, starting with your congrats to the Canadians team, and I'm so proud of them as well. The Ice Tekka will live forever in my memory in the snow, and then even the goal against Belgium, the goal that they scored, their first goal was just phenomenal. I think it was against Croatia, I should say. That was just such a powerful moment. And at the same time, you're also saying, look, it wasn't just the stars. And I love Kamal Miller's game. And I'm so glad you had a part of playing that entire defense, Alistair Johnston, everybody on that back line. The confidence and belief was different than I've ever seen from a Canadian team. And I know, again, you've talked about mindset several times in this, and belief. And I really believe the team even when Davies was out during qualifying, they still performed at an elite level because of the belief, right? And that's really powerful. And then you talked about, hey, we still have a ways to go. And, it's a constant debate about scores and participation medals and things like that. And look, I grew up in Kenya playing bare feet, and I went to Brazil for the 2014 World Cup, and you see a different level. They're on the sand playing football, no scores, no coaches. They're just battling it out with older kids and stuff. When I look at the parks around my house, it's empty, right? So there's something missing there that we got to cultivate to create what we need to. But I think we're on the right path. You said it's about what can we all do to just get Canada one more step up, right? I think it's really, really powerful.
I actually was on a call before this, and I just told the story of my kids and I don't know what date it was, but it was between Christmas and New Year, just gone, and we went to Regent's Park. It was a 6-7 degree day. It was a warm day for that time of the year, and as I was driving there, I was thinking, just off the back of the Men's World Cup, we talked about Soccer Nation. This pitch should be packed. It's a lovely turf pitch. It's free. It's right, in a sort of downtown core. And we get there and there's like 3 or 4 kids on the field, and it's so disappointing to me. And there's a rink next to it and there's like 40 people in the rink, And I understand that Canada is about hockey, but I mean, if we really are going to get to the top, we've got to get kids out playing, we've got to get kids out having fun, being in a field, whether it's grass in the summer or turf in the winter or whatever it is, clearing a little area of snow, shoveling. One year we were shoveling the snow to create a little 20-yard square where we could pass around and play. And it's that mindset that you see in other countries, that we have to find more here if we want to be really at our best. And I hope it's coming. It's improved, but it needs to improve a lot more to be anywhere near that level.
And I think there's a big role for Canada Soccer TFC to kind of create that, that desire to go out. Like I was at one of the local hockey rinks, and in the outdoor parking lot, there was a ball hockey tournament and it was just jammed. So what if we do 3-on-3s or 6-on-6s and have these elite athletes start being ambassadors? I think there's something there to start bringing more and more people about. But again, I think it's on the right path. So I did not talk about your TFC experience, but I do want to get your impressions of, moving from the Premiership and moving from Europe to Toronto. What was that like?
It was different for sure. It was an opportunity that presented itself that I felt was right at that period of my life. I just came off a championship season actually with Birmingham City, and I got the opportunity to come to Toronto. It was a short-term thing, and I realised right away that I could have an impact on Toronto FC in the game here in Canada. So it was the right place at the right time for me. Like I said, different, but I've always had a learning mindset, a sort of growth mindset. I'm someone who wants to put myself in situations where I can learn. Basically, I've never really changed from that, and I hope I never change. I think you can always learn within life, and so when I came to Toronto, I knew that my leadership skills were needed within Toronto FC. We had a good crop of young guys. We were just starting to build something. I felt like the organisation, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, were in a place where they were going to really support that development through financial means, of course, but the training ground was great and the stadium was going to be developed and what may be. So loved it, sat back, listened, learned. I think listening's a severely underrated skill. A lot of people want to always tell what they know instead of actually listening to what other people know and trying to take some time to form an opinion, which I did. And eventually, I think I started to get through to these young guys. They trusted me. They knew that I was here for the long term and that I wanted to make them better. And eventually had like a great couple of years on the field where Ashton Morgan, Carl Becker, Daniil Henry, 3 guys that have had great careers within Canada soccer, let's call it, were young lads that kind of came through alongside me and I played minutes with. And so, yeah, and then there was a bunch of Americans as well. And Joe Bendick's still playing in the league with Philadelphia Union. Ryan Richter was a good buddy of mine. He's assistant coach at Philadelphia. Andrew Wiedemann, a guy that I got on great with that I just saw recently in California, who's forging a great career for himself in business after playing, in Ottawa and in Cincinnati and a few different places. So relationships is the key to good leadership, and I built up some great relationships that I maintain to this day. Oh,
that's amazing. And I do a lot of business training sessions, and a lot of what you said there could be pretty much a business training session. You said, build the relationship one at a time. The most underrated skill is listening. And I 100% agree with you. And a lot of leaders feel like they need to profess as opposed to listen. And I love that answer there, where you go into a new situation, Premiership background, but you're still taking that, hey, I want to listen and learn growth mindset. That's really, really powerful. And I think a lot of leaders can really learn a lot from that last answer that you gave. How do you rate the, MLS soccer versus, the big leagues, La Liga or the Premiership or Bundesliga? How, what's your stance right now?
I think MLS is growing at a really great rate. It's obviously been continuing to do that for pretty much since TFC's inception. I think that was a big turning point for MLS, where they started to build that fan culture and they started to see some real talent coming into the league, but then eventually being produced in academies within the league. And I think that it's got better and better. I would say, to be completely honest, the last couple of years, I think I've plateaued a little bit, and that's concerning for me. The money's improved a great deal. I just don't know if the quality's improved that much overall. I will say there's still some amazing players that come to the league, some young South Americans that have been exceptional, some really great talent that's coming through North American academies. But overall, I see a little bit of plateau in the quality of the play, and I hope that it picks up again, because there's a long way to go. When you think about the numbers let's just even remove the Premier League, because it's crazy. They're buying guys for £100 million these days. It's just on another level. Like when it comes to even like Ligue 1 is a bit of a development club, in France. Bundesliga is a really good league at kind of establishing and developing talent as well, somewhat out with the big hitters in Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. I think the league has got a bit to go before it can be anywhere near the kind of top 5 leagues in the world. But is it getting nearer kind of the second tier of leagues, maybe like the Dutch league, Eredivisie, or the Belgian Pro League? I think it is. I think it's getting closer, but like I said, a danger of the overall quality plateau, and I do think coaching could be a little bit stronger in MLS as well. So hopefully we'll start to see different ideas, more ideas from young North American coaches, as well as some influence from some international leaders as well as they kind of come across. It's a brilliant league. It's a fun league, and I actually believe, I don't know how long it'll take, and it's really hard to put a number on it, but I actually believe that it'll be up there with the biggest leagues in the world one day, just because of the business acumen in North America, the size of these cities, the quality of these cities. People want to live in New York and Toronto and Miami and Los Angeles. That this league will eventually become a destination for everyone around the world, but it could take a few years before it actually gets to the levels of the top 5 leagues in the world.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's about, look, now that it's plateaued, I think I agree with you. How do we now take that next step in North America? What's going to get to the next step? Because I agree with you. I watched the World Cup, I watched the Premiership, and there is a gap, right? I watched the TFC game this weekend. It's still good soccer, but it's not quite there, right? So what are the things to get there? Okay, I want to settle the debate on who is the GOAT, right? So I'm a Messi fan. What's your opinion? And also, like, what have these two phenomenal athletes done for soccer?
I think first and foremost, let's talk about what they've done for each other, because that is huge. I don't think they would have been at the top for so long if they didn't have each other, to push each other on, to fight for Ballon d'Ors, to fight for La Liga titles and international trophies, Champions Leagues. So I think they've got both each other to thank for that. And I do believe that there's a real respect there between them, because they know that. They know that they would never have been the phenomenon individually if it wasn't for the rival there. When it comes to the GOAT, I'm a big Messi guy. I just think overall Messi is, let's put it this way, naturally Messi has more talent than Ronaldo. Messi is just probably the most intuitive player to ever play the game of football. His brain is on another level. It's just his ability to understand when to move, where to move, and how to burst is just even more spectacular now in the autumn of his career than it was in the heyday of his career, because he doesn't have the legs anymore, and he doesn't really have the athleticism, the speed that he once had to go past people, yet he still impacts the game at the highest level because he just understands where to be and when to move at the exact time that he should do it. So he's the number one. But then you get this other guy, this Portuguese phenomenon called Ronaldo, who has took all the raw talent that he has, and he's created this dedication to making himself the best he can possibly be, to the levels that we've never seen before. We've never seen a guy push his body. So many other people would have just somewhat given up when it comes to trying to compete with Messi for Ballon d'Ors and things like that, because he's so good, whereas this guy just had this unwavering belief that he was better, and he proved it in certain seasons. So I've got so much respect for both of them, but I am more of a Messi fan when I'm kind of watching the game with a neutral hat on. But I have huge respect for Ronaldo and the way that he goes about maximising his potential, because this is what I teach every young guy, that I come across, or young player that I come across. It's like, it's not about what you have. It's about, well, it is about what you have. It's about kind of using the strengths that you have and being, pushing yourself to be even better in kind of the department, and it's about, using your mentality to, I guess, kind of hide your weaknesses and to sort of like be this best version of yourself. So I think I admire Ronaldo so much because of the way that he uses that mental aspect of himself and to push himself to be even better in the game of football.
Yeah, fantastic. So Messi is the GOAT. We've established that. But I agree with you. The two of them really took each other to new plateaus and new levels. And the word dedication, growth mindset, continuous learning. And I marveled at Messi's performance in the World Cup, because you could tell physically, even at the beginning of the World Cup, he wasn't quite there. And then he just seemed to rewind the clock 10 years. But he was still kind of walking pace, but then he would just turn it on. And that goal against Croatia that he scored, and that, unbelievable play. But I'm a big fan. I'm a big Barcelona fan as well. Do you have a Premiership team? There's a certain team, Arsenal, that's doing quite well this year.
I'm very neutral when it comes to most football, to be honest. But I like the clubs that I played for, obviously, and I'm kind of edging towards Newcastle at the moment because my eldest lad, Will, is a big Newcastle fan, so we're watching a lot of Newcastle. I'm excited with what's going on there with the influx of money and the quality of how he's building that squad is very exciting. But I usually sort of admire a team or teams in every individual season. You brought up Arsenal, and they are a team that I'm kind of rooting for this year. I just like the way that they've went about it. I do think Arteta's doing a tremendous job, and the football's really fun to watch. So I've always been a huge Pep fan. I do believe he's the best coach in the world, but in City I've been absolutely phenomenal. But I'm kind of rooting for Arsenal this year. I hope they get it done and they win the Premier League.
Yeah, no, and the influence of Pep is probably stamped on Arteta, right, and all the players. So I think that's really powerful. So we've talked a lot about footy. I love it. We could probably talk all day about it, but I do want to talk about your transition, right? So you've done this had this amazing career, and now broadcasting is in front of you. How do you turn that into loving Mondays for broadcasting and your current role? I'd love to hear about that transition.
Yeah, it was a pretty natural transition, actually, and it was one that was never so planned, to be honest. It was something that I always enjoyed. I was involved in broadcasting when I played in the UK. I'd done a few games for Sky Sports and a few shows, so I knew I enjoyed it. And when I came to Canada, I actually just reached out through my great press officer at Newcastle, Mike Massaro, to see if there was any appetite for Sportsnet or TSN to have me on the Premier League show, having played in the league. And thankfully for me, TSN showed an interest and reached out. I did some shows when I still played, and then did some shows when Christian Jack or Jason DeVos were away for whatever reason. And as Jason left his role with Canada Soccer, I kind of just slipped into all of his work, and it became a sort of full-time permanent thing for me, and I've loved it. I've really enjoyed it. I had tremendous mentors, and Jason to a lesser extent for a short period, and Luke Wildman and Christian Jack, just amazing people to learn from. The work ethic, the sort of understanding of the role, what goes into it, how to be the best at it, and to push each other to be better. I was so fortunate that was my start, because I do think that the guys taught me what it takes to be the best, and I'm thankful they're still very good friends of mine. I still obviously work really closely with Luke as we call games and we host shows. I love it. I really love it. I love the game. I found out through broadcasting that, and I mean, it's always nice to do World Cup finals and to be part of like top level games, but it's football that I love. It's the challenge between one team and another to try and outsmart each other in that match that is my true passion. So I can find a love in kind of any game. I can go watch an under 13 game, and I can watch a lower level match, and I can just love it the same, because to me it's intriguing to see how one team's trying to shape up against the other, and how the styles might contrast, and who's going to kind of end up on top, and maybe try and predict some of that as a colour commentator or as an analyst is fascinating to me. And you get some right, you get some wrong, but it's that debate and that discussion around the game of football that I love, that makes the game so special. My style is really developed as a broadcaster. I think that everyone that knows me knows that I try and be really fair, really honest. It obviously upsets people at times, because I think people expect me to be pro TFC because I played there, and of course I love TFC, but I'm such a neutral guy when it comes to broadcasting. I think maybe only Scotland would be like the only team that would have to be neutral for. Everyone else, it's just, to me, it's like I have a kind of integrity and a duty to the game to actually call it how it is. I try and be opinionated. I try and sort of say what I think, and I'm quick to throw out an opinion. And again, I'll be first to admit if I get it wrong. If I say it should have been a penalty, and then I see the replay and I was wrong, I'm quick to admit it. But I like to be fast with opinions. I think people want that. I think people want the colour guy to be direct and to the point. And again, it causes that debate. People will say, "Oh, Caldwell's talking rubbish." That was never and others totally agree with me, and I welcome that side of the game, because again, as we try and grow this game in Canada, we've talked a lot about that today. We've got to get it to a point where I go to the UK and I see people talking about football and on the tube and in the pub and in the restaurant. It's everywhere, and hopefully TSN and One Soccer and guys like us can help promote that conversation, because until we get to that point where there's debate and there's conversation around every aspect of the game, then we're probably not going to grow as quickly as we need to be the best.
Yeah, no, and interesting for me. So in your broadcasting, I've seen your growth. I mean, I really enjoy your opinions, and you were when Herdman made some moves, you were very honest with your opinions. And what I also like is you talked about how you were helped along by Christian Jack and Luke Wildman. But I've seen the new crop of broadcasters in the World Cup, and I really am seeing their development. I think it's that same mentorship from yourself and Luke and stuff. And I really enjoyed the broadcast. And I'll be honest, before I used to try and find the non-Canadian feed, but now I'm actually enjoying it and I appreciate it. So congrats. And I think, again, that's a nice ascent that I'm seeing over there. And I do want to stop for a sec, because you talked about debate within football community. So I play for the Goan Soccer League. I play on a team there, and there's always debate, Man U against Arsenal and all that. I play for Burlington City, which is another team I play for. We play Tuesday nights at Camilla, and the debate is furious. So it is there. It's about how do we continue to raise that. And I want to pay tribute to all my teammates and stuff. And I do want to stop for a sec, because there's one gentleman, a friend of mine, who passed away. His name's Neil Pinto. And he would have absolutely loved this debate. And he was always sending us messages and things like that. So he'll be smiling at this interview. And I do want to remember him for a moment. So Stephen, you're now the CEO of Best Athletes, which frankly, I don't know a whole lot about. I'd love you to tell us about that. And maybe if you want to talk about anything else you're doing that you feel great.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Best Athletes is a company I joined. Gosh, it was probably almost 2 years ago now. I just love what they were trying to do. And so, as I was kind of developing post-game, doing my broadcasting, did some work as, learning the ropes as an executive at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, I kind of edged towards more of an entrepreneurial pathway. And one of the things that came on my lap was a technology company called Best Athletes. And I've been pretty much part of that for 2+ years. It's really exciting what we're trying to do. We're a youth sports platform. And the idea is that we're a recruitment platform and a central scouting database. And we're trying to democratise youth sport, really. And we're starting in soccer for obvious reasons. But the idea is, can we give everybody a fair chance to get to the highest level, whether it be school or professional football? How do we help people get there? We want to bring in some fundamental assessments to the platform, so you have this recruiting profile that can help you find the right school or the right club for you. So we've made some great strides, great developments. We've got a long way to go. We're still in the early stages, but I do think what we're doing is really unique, really exciting, and glad to be part of it. I'm actually CEO, which has been very enjoyable and a great learning curve for me to try and navigate that and to use my my skill sets to kind of leading players, is to try and take that in a business environment. We're really on the verge of kind of setting up a really successful year for us, which will be very important for our company growth. It's these assessments. You got like physical. We have, these tests that we kind of go through, and then you have technical, tactical report cards, and then you have an athlete mindset test, which we talked about a lot at the start of this interview, where we have a third party that we use that has been used by the Patriots and a lot of different organisations. It gives you an idea who you are as an athlete from a mindset point of view, and how you can, again, use your strengths and weaknesses to kind of improve your weaknesses and hone your strengths, let's say, to be the best that you can. And then we just feel that'll help schools and universities, colleges, professional clubs, even community clubs make better, more educated decisions when they're trying to build their teams. So great start to our life, and we hope that we can continue to grow and become that gold standard of assessment for recruiting within North America.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I think it connects really well to all your other answers about democratizing soccer and, level playing field and really raising the game and mindset. So I think it's a perfect fit. And you're now the CEO. I love that. So you've always had leadership follow you around, or you followed around. You talked to me about being a captain of TFC and other clubs. What is it about you that attracts this leadership? Like, what are the qualities? You've talked about listening. What else is important for leaders if they want to rise to the top?
I think everyone has to be authentic to themselves and do it their way. There's too much made about, what kind of leader you're supposed to be, you have to be within business or sport, whatever it is. Let's take football as an example. Everybody thinks, you got to be that Roy Keane type leader, that Kobe Bryant, let's use him as an example, where it's like, there's kind of the levels of excellence are sort of like bullying others. I don't know, you know what I mean? Bullying others to be their best. Well, that's just not me. I try and be an empathetic leader. I try and get to know my players. I try and let them understand that I got their back, that I'm going to fight for them every single day, and I'm going to try and make sure that they're represented when it comes to, the coaching staff or the front office. Or, I am a vocal guy in terms on the pitch, but I was never a guy who had to speak or had to be heard. But I always felt when I was going to speak, because of the relationships I'd built up, people listened and people sat up. And so as our kind of captain, basically most teams that I played for past the age of 23, I realised that people responded to me and people kind of liked the leader that I was, and it was my great strength. And I don't say this to be humble or self-promoting either, but I was never a great player, but I was a great leader. And I say that with all sincerity. My great strength was actually getting the best out of others. And so I played in some great teams because that was the role that I played. That was the part that I fit. And so I try and take that experience and move it into the business world. And after, kind of heading into MLSE and that first day and wearing my suit and heading to some big meetings where we're kind of the higher bosses, I'll never forget, one of them turned to me and said, "Don't speak for 6 months." And I laugh about it now. And it sounds harsh, but I understand what he meant. Listen and learn and, sort of like take your time to get your feet under the table. And I think it was very, very sound advice. I'm glad that he gave me it. And what I realised after the, let's call it 4 or 5 months, because I'm impetuous and I wanted to move forward, but I realised that the skill sets that I had on the football field really translated to business. And the skill set, again, for me as a CEO or as any leader or anybody in a higher position, is understanding people, listening to people, knowing what makes them tick and knowing how to get the best out of them are actually everything that matters within a team environment. So I knew I could translate the skills that I had on the football field in a business sense. And I'm always learning and I'm always improving and adapting. And, it's like Pep as an example as a coach at Man City. It's never the same. He's always growing, he's always learning, he's always picking up things from others, and he's the best. For me, it's always trying to get better and trying to improve, but remembering what is my skill set? My skill set is getting the best out of people and trying to do that within Best Athletes and other businesses I'm involved in is important to me and critical to my success.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that answer where you talked about being authentic yourself. There's no one size fits all and leaving the situation a better place than when you got there, right? Really growing future leaders. And I've been interviewing a lot of servant leaders. This one gentleman, Howard Bihar, was the ex-president of Starbucks, and that's what he talked about. On a level playing field. And I really feel like the command and control days are pretty much done. It is the new style of leadership that you talked about that will be successful on the pitch in the business world. So Stephen, you've been super generous with your time and your stories. I've really, really appreciated it. Any last words from you?
Big thank you for giving me a chance to talk, Ron. I know we've been close for a while, but I really love what you're doing. Please keep it up. And again, thanks for allowing me to join you and share some of my thoughts.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Have a great day.
You too.